Hello, friends. I'm Miss Nikki, and thank you for joining me today for our Read with Friends. I have a really fun book that I'm excited to share with you. But first, do you have a favorite place you guys like to read? Or even a favorite stuffy that you like to read to? Or even a soft blanket that you like to cuddle up with? Well, you might be wondering, why is Miss Nikki sitting outside? Well, guess why? My favorite place to read, but only in the summertime, is outside. I like to feel the sun and see the butterflies and birds flying by. I think it's very peaceful to read outside. Sometimes it can be kind of noisy though, so let's hope that today will be a quiet day in nature and in Miss Nikki's neighborhood. So today's story is called Monster and Boy, and the author or the person who wrote it is Hannah Barnaby. And we want to thank the author, Hannah Barnaby, and the publisher at Squarefish Publishing for letting us read this fun story today. What do you guys think the story's about? Look at the cover. It's called Monster and Boy. And look at the picture too. It looks like a monster and a boy. Do you think maybe it's about birds? Probably not, right? It's probably about a monster and a boy, like the picture in the title show. Now, before we read this story, would Miss Nikki read a super scary book to you? No, she wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. So this is a fun book. It's make-believe, which means it's fake, it's fiction, it's not real. It didn't happen. It could never happen. So let's keep that in our minds when we read our story called The Monster and Boy. And if you guys want to follow along, if you grab the book bundle for July from the library, a copy of this should be in there, or it's also available digitally on Libby and Overdrive. Because if you remember, with Read with Friends, we only read a first couple of chapters, and then you're on your own to figure out how it ends. So, Monster and Boy. Chapter 1. Once there was a monster who loved a boy. The monster had never met the boy because monsters are nocturnal. What does nocturnal mean? Well, it means that they're active at night. So while we're sleeping at night, this monster, who's make-believe, is awake. So monsters are nocturnal, and boys, well, most boys are not. But he knew the sound of the boy's voice. He loved that sound. He knew the smell of the boy's dirty socks, and he loved that smell. Oh, gross. He knew the sight of the boy's slippers by the side of the bed, waiting for the boy's feet, and he loved those slippers and those feet. Monsters don't know much about love, or maybe they do. The monster had lived under the boy's bed for many years. He listened to the boy play during the day. He listened to the boy talking in his sleep at night. He heard bedtime stories and songs. He heard snoring and shuffling. He loved the boy more and more. One night, the boy's mother read him a book about monsters. "I'm not afraid of monsters," he heard the boy say. "Of course not," said his mother. "There's no such thing as monsters." How do you think the monster felt about that? "I'll show her," the monster thought. As soon as she closed the door behind her, the monster pulled himself out from under the bed and he stretched. Can you guys stretch? And he stood up and he looked at the boy. "Hello," said the monster. The boy was silent. The monster thought the boy couldn't see him, so he made himself light up. "Ta-da!" the monster said. The boy took a deep breath and opened his mouth. And the monster knew the boy was going to scream. Would you guys scream if you saw a monster under your bed? Well, since they're not real, probably not, right? The monster panicked. He did the only thing he could think of. What do you guys think he does? He swallows the boy. How silly. All right. So now the boy's in the monster's belly. This story is not quite what you were expecting, is it? When a story begins with the word once, it seems like you know what you're getting into. The word once is tricky that way because it means that whatever happens in this story happened only one time, and therefore it couldn't possibly happen to you too. But once also means that every story is different. Anything is possible. If it makes you feel any better, I am quite surprised by what just happened. In fact, I have no idea what's going to happen next. Does that make you feel better? No? Well, we better keep reading then. And what's he doing? He's trying to push his way out of that monster's belly, isn't he? Smart boy. The monster was instantly sorry. So we just started chapter 3. The monster was instantly sorry that he swallowed the boy. The boy felt strange in his stomach, heavy and nervous. The monster did not like how it felt, and he also missed the boy terribly. Probably shouldn't have swallowed them though, right? Then he heard a small voice inside himself. What do you think that voice was? Do you guys have any idea? Let's see. It was not his conscience. It was not his soul. It was the boy. "I'd like to come out, please," said the boy. "I'd like that too," said the monster replied. "Then let me out," said the boy. The monster put his hands gently on his belly. "I don't know how." His belly was silent. Then the boy said, "My mother says there's no such thing as monsters." Said the monster. "I think she's wrong about that." "I'm starting to think so too," the boy said. "Maybe she forgot about monsters when she grew up." The monster thought about this. It made sense to him. But it also made him unbearably sad because the boy would grow up too. And then the monster wouldn't be believed in anymore. The boy yawned. It was warm inside the monster and dark, and he was getting sleepy. The monster swayed back and forth gently until the boy fell asleep. He snored a little, and it tickled the monster's stomach in a pleasant way. The monster was a bit less sad now, but was still lonely, and he still didn't know what to do. "Think," he told himself. But as soon as he did, his mind went completely blank. Isn't that what always happens? Chapter 4. Here I shall tell you that even though the monster and the boy have not properly introduced themselves to each other, they both had names. However, the monster nor the boy properly introduced himself to me either. So I don't know what their names are. That's probably why they keep calling him monster and boy, right? Do you guys know what their names are? Well, let's make up some. We'll call the monster Reginald, and we'll call the boy Grover. No? What about Soupone and Ted? No? Big Magic and Earl? No? Well, why don't you go ahead and make up your own names for the monster and the boy, and I'll just keep calling them the monster and the boy. Can you guys come up with names that you guys think they should be called? Have you got some in mind? There's only one monster and one boy in the book, so it won't be too confusing. At least, I don't think so. Chapter 5. The monster sat there with a boy he loved sleeping in his belly. He waited for his mind to fill up again. He thought. He thought about making himself burp. He thought about tickling himself until he laughed so hard that the boy came flying out of his mouth. He thought about calling his mother and asking for advice. But burping was embarrassing, and he didn't want the boy to hear him do it. And tickling yourself is very nearly impossible. It is. Go ahead, try it. Go ahead, I'll wait for you. Can you guys tickle yourself? I'm going to try. It doesn't really work. That didn't really tickle me. So I think the monster's right that that's not really possible. And then he thought, although his mother was a nocturnal too, She didn't like talking on the phone. Then a very particular, rather naughty thought slowly scrolled through the monster's head. He had gotten used to the feeling of the boy in his belly. He almost liked him there. If he kept the boy, he wouldn't have to miss the boy when he left for school in the morning, because the boy wouldn't go to school at all anymore. And wouldn't that make the boy happy? Wasn't the boy always complaining about having to get up so early and get dressed and eat breakfast and get on the bus? Now he wouldn't have to do any of those things. The boy would be so happy. The monster couldn't wait to tell the boy the good news. But the boy was still snoring away. The monster was tired from so much thinking and so many feelings and all that swaying. He just needed some rest. The monster crawled under the boy's bed, thinking happily of what he'd say to the boy when they both woke up. He fell asleep. He woke up some hours later as the moonlight crawled across the floor and crept its bright fingers under the edge of the monster's home. He came out, blinked and stretched, and he noticed something terrible. What do you think the monster noticed? His belly felt light and empty. The boy was gone. Where did the boy go? How about we read just one more chapter together to see if we can find the boy? And then after that, we'll let you guys finish the story on your own. All right, ready? Chapter 6. The monster felt all around his belly. He jumped up and down. He wiggled back and forth. He didn't feel anything. He was empty. Oh no, he cried. And then he really cried. He cried so hard that he gasped for air, and then he began to cough. He coughed again and again and again, and then once more. He coughed so hard that something flew out of his mouth. It was about the size of a grasshopper, but it wasn't a grasshopper. What was it then? Any guesses? It was the boy. What happened to me? He squeaked. You got tiny, the monster said. Does this happen to everything you swallow? The boy asked. The monster shrugged. I don't know. I've never swallowed anything before. Never? The boy asked. The monster shook his head. I've always just been under your bed. The boy was amazed. You've never had cookies? Or pizza? Or broccoli? No, the monster said sadly. That's a shame, said the boy. Then he got a strange look on his face. Alarmed, the monster asked, What's wrong? The boy looked up. A tiny, tiny tear rolled down his tiny cheek. Talking about food has made me really hungry. And I don't know if I'll ever get to eat those things again either. Maybe I'll have to live under the bed with you. This thought delighted the monster for exactly 4 seconds, and then it didn't. Do not worry, the monster told the boy. We will fix this. How? Asked the boy. I do not know, admitted the monster. He looked around the boy's room. There were many, many things in the room, but he didn't know how any of them worked or what they were named. Do you have anything that makes things bigger? He asked the boy. I have a magnifying glass, said the boy. It makes things look bigger. The monster considered this. That may not be enough, but it's a start. The boy was much too small to get out the magnifying glass, and he couldn't remember which drawer he had put it in, so the monster had to look for it. Since the monster had never seen a magnifying glass, he spent a rather long time pulling things out of drawers and holding them up, asking, Is this it? And each time the boy said no. Finally, the boy suggested that maybe he should describe the magnifying glass. It's round, he said, with a straight handle. The monster found a round thing with a handle. That's what he found. No, said the boy, that's in it. A magnifying glass has a part that you look through. Like this? Asked the monster. No, said the boy, that's a kaleidoscope. That won't make me look bigger. It will just make it look like there are a lot of me and that we're all mixed up. The monster quickly dropped the kaleidoscope. No, thank you, he exclaimed. We have quite enough trouble already. What else does the magnifying glass look like? It's silver, the boy said. Round and silver, and you can look through it. Got it, the monster held up the magnifying glass. Almost, said the boy. Those are handcuffs. Drat it all, shouted the monster, and he slapped the drawer with frustration. The drawer flew out of the dresser and fell on the floor with a tremendous noise. Have you ever noticed how much louder noises are when you're trying very hard to be quiet? Even little noises and medium noises, and especially embarrassing noises. Well, this noise was the loudest, most heart-stopping, trying to be quiet noise that you've ever heard. So they're trying to be quiet. Why are they trying to be quiet? Are they afraid that mom and dad are going to come up and find out that the boy is really little, the size of a grasshopper? That wouldn't be good if they found out, would it? The monster gasped, and the boy clapped his hands over his mouth, even though he hadn't said anything. They waited for someone to come running into the room, but no one did. And there, on the floor, right in the middle of everything that had fallen out of the drawer, was the magnifying glass. That's the end of chapter 6. So if you want to find out if the boy stays little forever, or even if monsters are real, which they're not, you want to keep reading. So we finished chapter 6. So thank you for joining me today. I had a good time, and next week we have Miss Angela reading the book From the Desk of Zoe Washington. So I hope that you enjoyed this silly, fun story. And again, it's silly, it's fun. It didn't really happen, but it makes for a good read. You guys have a good rest of your summer. Enjoy the rest of the story.